Good day, everyone. I am Michael, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is 2024 HIPAA Texting and Email Do's and Don'ts. I want to introduce our presenter for today, Brian L. Tuttle. Brian L. Tuttle is a Certified Professional in Health IT, CPHIT, Certified HIPAA Professional, CPH, Certified HIPAA Administrator, CHA, Certified Business Reliances Auditor, CPRA, Certified Information Systems Security Professional, CISSP, with over 17 years of experience in health IT and compliance consulting. Mr. Tuttle has a master's degree in the study of law from University of Georgia. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much. Again, just a quick background. My name is Brian Tuttle, and I have been working in the world of HIPAA really since the early 2000s. That's when the HIPAA Security Rule came out, which amended the original 1996 HIPAA Privacy Rule, adding additional regulations relating to electronic protected health information as texting, emailing, the types of viruses and tricks that can be born from emailing, personal device uses, things of that nature, of course, fall under the HIPAA security rule. So let's get started here. A little bit of background about HIPAA. HIPAA is a massive law. A lot of folks don't realize this. This regulation is gigantic. It's HIPAA, as you know, is an acronym, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. The reason I have this octopus here is that's what this regulation sort of reminds me of. It has a lot of tentacles. It gets into many other areas of laws and regulations. We're only really dealing with a very small part of the overall HIPAA regulation. We deal with the privacy rule, the security rule, and the breach notification rule. Here's what I'm talking about. Here's why we need this, why we have HIPAA. This is a civil right. Your rights under this regulation, they are civil rights. This regulation is enforced by the Office for Civil Rights because it is a civil right every American enjoys that you have access to your electronic health record. You have a right to a copy of it. The right to know who has viewed your medical records, an accounting of disclosures. You have a civil right to amend your medical records, to remove authorization on those as well. You also have a civil right to the security of your medical records. They should be secured to reasonable and appropriate levels. If they're not, that's a violation of your civil rights. And lastly, you have a civil right to be notified if a breach happens. So the privacy rule came out first. The privacy rule deals with protected health information in any form, paper, electronic, verbal. The security rule, though, it deals only with electronic protected health information. Privacy defined as the right of an individual to keep his or her individual health information from being disclosed. The security rule, mechanisms to protect the privacy of electronic protected health information. So privacy encompasses all PHI. Security rule is broken down into three pieces: administrative safeguards, physical safeguards, and technological safeguards. Those are the three pillars on which the security rule stands. But over the last 2 years, we've had more breaches of electronic protected health information than the entire history of the regulation times 10. So let's talk about the final omnibus rule of 2013. 2013 is really the last major overhaul to the regulation. Now, there have been adjustments, more funding, more audits in every single year since 2013. So historically, this has been benign, no consequences for actions in most cases. Audits have begun in earnest, big, small, short, and tall, does not matter size and scope. We are all at risk. Could we be fined for violations even if a breach doesn't occur? Yes. If, for example, a patient says, I want you to email me my medical records, I don't want them encrypted, I accept the risks. If you don't send it, that's a HIPAA violation, believe it or not. That's part of the new Cures Act. It's called information blocking. Okay, business associates. There's a lot going on here. A business associate could be as small as one person. So they can be very, very large organizations too. Business associates must comply directly with the law. Business associates must conduct their own HIPAA security risk assessments. Business associates must develop policies and procedures consistent to their risks. A little bit of what's going on with business associates. PHI, what is protected health information? The patient name, full or last name and initial, the date of birth, the address, anything more specific than a state, including street address, city, county, precinct, and in most cases zip code and their equivalent geocodes, social security number, phone fax number, email address, the MAC address of the network card on your computer. Even old information can be considered PHI, like your old phone number. So what constitutes a breach? That would be any impermissible use or disclosure of PHI. It is presumed to be a breach with a requirement to notify the patient or patients unless we can demonstrate there's a low probability anything's been compromised. Now, if there is a breach or suspected breach, we need to have the proper documents in place to investigate what happened, what was the nature and the extent of the PHI. A few common HIPAA violations: selecting the wrong person to carbon copy on an email, selecting the wrong patient name in an EMR system, account number, medical record number, entering the wrong supervising attending physician, sharing information about patients with others when there's no reason for them to know, failure to report a breach, improper disposals, just some things, some common HIPAA violations. And just because something's a violation does not mean it is necessarily a breach. Okay, let's talk specifically about email. We're going to talk first about using email to transmit medical information. Then we're going to talk about the dangers of email, because we can't not talk about that. Email is the Trojan horse. Can you use email to transmit medical information? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Does HIPAA permit us to use email to discuss treatment issues with patients and other providers for that matter? Yes. So certain precautions would need to be taken, like obviously make sure you're sending it to the right location. An individual also has a right under HIPAA to request a provider communicate with him or her by alternative means. What if the patient initiates the conversation? What if the patient reaches out to you through text, through email, through Facebook Messenger, something like that, which is not a HIPAA compliant communicating platform? What if they do it? Well, can you communicate with them? The answer is yes. Don't ever communicate with patients like that unless they have accepted the risks. If they want it unencrypted, they have a right to it. We are responsible for breach notification for unsecured transmissions, transmitting medical information via email amongst each other from one provider to the next. Can you use email or other electronic forms to exchange information? Absolutely. The very first standard security management process, risk analysis. That's a key point to the HIPAA security rule. Let's go all the way down to the 18th standard, the last standard, by the way. Transmission security. So identify any possible unauthorized sources that may be able to intercept and or modify the information. Develop and implement transmission security policies and procedures. So integrity controls. This is the first implementation specification under transmission security. Are there adequate assurances PHI isn't getting altered when it's being sent? So is encryption needed? I think you should encrypt PHI when you transmit it outside your domain. So be careful about your email account getting compromised. We can use non-HIPAA compliant telemedicine solutions if they're used in good faith and the patient accepts the risks of using them. They need to acknowledge risks. Cyber threats. It's impossible to talk about email and not talk about the cyber threats. You cannot be HIPAA compliant without educating your staff members on common cybersecurity threats. A lot of these spoofs are done by artificial intelligence, AI. Now phishing, P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G, these are fake emails. These are emails that look like they come from Amazon or Apple or PayPal, trying to trick you into clicking on a link that's embedded in that email. Ransomware. Ransomware is the #1 way data is breached in the world, potentially a ransomware virus. The virus will attack every folder on your desktop. It will attack any file shares you're connected to, and any databases you're connected to. It will attack them and it will encrypt them with the virus. If it attaches to unencrypted PHI is a reportable breach. If the data is already encrypted, it would not be a breach. So here's the bottom line. Do not put any protected health information into folders on your desktop. Shouldn't be doing that anyway. Let's talk about use of personal devices, BYOD. But bring your own device. So use of personal devices is becoming more of the norm, really, than the exception. A lot of positives of using personal devices. Provides flexibility. The negatives. No PHI to be written. That's going to be in policy. You can use your personal device for your second factor in multi-factor authentication. Educating staff on appropriate apps and softwares. A little bit more on mobile devices real quick. HHS, as we know, already issued guidance addressing the extent to which PHI is protected on mobile devices. Delete the apps you don't need. Make sure you encrypt any portable device and certainly any personal device. We are not to be texting PHI through regular SMS texting at all unless it's directly to the patient with consent. Unsecured texting PHI. I am a proponent of texting if it's done appropriately. Do not text appointment reminders if you are in a sensitive type of practice. When you email inside your own domain, you don't need to encrypt. Make sure and get those risk assessments completed. There's a new risk assessment tool. This is the audit protocol. Don't be in a reactive state. Be proactive. Yeah, I think I touched on everything that I wanted to get to here, and I hope you guys enjoyed that for as much as you can enjoy a hour and a half on HIPAA. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and with that, I will end the webinar.
Once again, thank you, Brian, for the great presentations and all the answers. So that does conclude the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.